Hello and welcome to Together FM. My name is Lisa Burke and I'm standing in for Karina today. Karina unfortunately couldn't make it today, so I am here on behalf of Karina. And my name is Lisa Burke and I help people find courage to take ownership of the life they truly deserve. I run my own studio in Ballantyre, the Danu Yoga Centre, and online courses as well through Yoga Soul Academy. And I am really excited to be here today in this programme. When she asked me to do it, one of the biggest areas that for me is really close to my heart and what I'd like to focus on today is really looking at mother-daughter relationships. And I'd love to just open up a conversation to you, the listeners, just to invite you here, the listeners, to maybe think about your own relationship as a mother or a daughter. There's a beautiful quote actually that I heard that really captures one of the strands of this theme about relationship, and that's knowing what it is to heal the little girl we once were, to become the woman we were always meant to be, to really stand in our power as a woman. So I felt this would be a really beautiful opportunity to invite my own mother into this conversation. I felt just with my mom being here today, it would be a wonderful opportunity to bring us together. And we've been working together running workshops to support this particular personal growth. Mary is my mother, Mary, and she is a psychotherapist and works formally in individual therapy. And she joined a clinical team in a residential setting, and then latterly has been back working now with individual therapy and workshops. So Mary, you are very welcome to Together FM. I'm so happy that you're here beside me.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for asking me. I suppose, when you asked me, I started to think, well, why would I do it? My initial, in the conversation, my initial thing was, I don't know. But then when I thought about it, I thought about that moment and that experience for me of when we did our first workshop. And although we had prepared and we talked about what we were doing and all of that, it wasn't till the actual experience of working through that workshop that day and realising at the end of that it was seamless, that we were meeting in a very seamless way as two strong women. And it was so powerful. And then it made me realise what a journey that we've been on as mother and daughter, So to come to this conversation, to come to the table with this conversation is like, wow, yeah, let's talk. Let's have the conversation, because we've had such a journey to get, to this point, and maybe this is a possibility for others. Other women out there.
And you're saying about the why of being here, and for me, I think the biggest why, when I look at my own relationship with my own daughter, I have two sons and a daughter, but I just know as a mom, when we birth children into the world, and even if you're not a mom and you don't have kids, but really about the power of modelling how to be in the world to the generation that's coming up behind us, how to stand in your power, how to own all of who you are, and to show them, particularly I see it with my own daughter. It's like I have wishes and wants and hopes and dreams for my daughter as she grows up, and I know that, like, for me, the experience was, when I was kind of keeping my own self small and doing things that I didn't like to do, and yet I was saying to them, go and be whatever you want to be, live your dreams. And it's like, well, I didn't really feel authentic in that because I wasn't doing it. So I really feel the power of the why for me in this work is about standing and modelling how to be in the world and saying, well, actually, if I'm going to tell you that you can live your dreams and do what you want, that actually it's so important for me to be able to do that and show her, actually, this is how you do it. So that's the biggest why for me.
Yeah.
So I guess just the story of being a mother. I'd love to look at maybe that for you, like for you being a mother yourself. How has that been for you, Mary?
As a mother, as a daughter first.
So a daughter, maybe a daughter
maybe kind
first.
of look at being a daughter, because, you know, when I think back to, you know, I suppose I can't help but go to my mother's journey, a little kind of piece of her journey, because she would have come from Ireland. She would have went to Scotland to start nursing in Glasgow. She would have met my father, and then there were 6 of us born there, and then we moved later, you know, to England, and then I met and married and came back to Ireland, so I did full circle. But when I look back at my mother, you know, my mother had this amazing, you know, potential for warmth. She just was really, there was huge compassion in her. I loved listening to my mother's stories. She was a great storyteller. So there was this amazing, warm, you know, hug, if you like. And then the other side of that coin was she was, you know, very stressed, very unpredictable. And it led to, I would say for myself, an insecure attachment. And we all know how important attachment is to the early stages of development for any of us, you know. So I suppose that, you know, that experience of those 2 very, you know, polarized pieces, you know, of my mother, if you like, led to the periods of demonizing her, and then idealizing her, and then back to demonizing her. And so that was the I suppose the early and mid relationship with her was full of those struggles, you know, of being drawn to her and feeling that, you know, warmth and compassion and all of that. And then that experience of unpredictability. Who was I meeting? You know, would she be angry? Would she be, you know, warm? So it was that unpredictability, I suppose, that, you know, I only came to understand after a lot of therapy, you know, for myself and a lot of work on myself, that I came to understand that I needed in some way to be able to hold both. I needed to be able to hold you know, the story, both the stories. And if I was able to do that, then I was finding something of integration, you know, for myself, you know, of being able to hold those 2 pieces. Because of course later I would, you know, on my own journey then into motherhood, I would imagine certainly for a certain number of years I was holding both of those pieces also, you know. So I suppose that's, the early years were full of that uncertainty for me, and that would have led to some fear, you know, of carrying kind of, you know, fear. So, but I also saw a lot of courage in my mother. So I think, you know, it's lovely when I watch you today, you know, doing those pieces and working with courage and having the courage and all of that. And I know my own life has been marked by moments of courage all the way through, and the steps that I took, you know, as well. So, yeah, that's the kind of stuff that comes up when I think of my mother and my experience of being mothered, you know.
And being a daughter
Yeah.
to that, yeah. And you probably have the ease of knowing that your mom isn't here, and I'm sitting here. I'm very aware that you are here, so that so I am staying
So be
open and
careful.
honest. We have a boxing ring outside just in case.
Okay.
No. Said with love. This, for me, I think being a daughter, yeah, I mean, you're mentioned about those, you know, not being able to hold both. And certainly, actually, there's a lovely quote, I will come back, but there's a lovely piece. There's a woman called Lee Sharkey, and she looks at the relationships with mother and daughter, and she says, women grow up and our energy is largely turned toward men, but the original love relationship is with mother. And if we as daughters don't acknowledge that, we're closing ourselves off from a great source of power and fulfillment and understanding of ourselves. And that is huge, because for me, I remember one of the parts, like as a little girl, you know, we want to be our mommy, we want to put on your big high shoes and your fancy dresses and put on makeup. I'm not so good with makeup. I never have been. I'm still not so good. When we go away together, I have 5 pieces in my makeup bag and my mum freaks out. Mum has like a whole suitcase with makeup and extras. You've worked on that over the last few years, actually. You're getting really good now. So yeah, so there's that little bit. So I still am working on that part of it. But I suppose as I got older then, we come into our teen years and there's that whole piece around where we kind of pull away. And actually she talks about this here. I'm going to read this out because it's kind of funny. It resonates, and it might resonate with you, our listeners, being a daughter. So when you're 5, your mom is a goddess. You smear your face with her lipstick, model her earrings, her high heels, want to be just like your mummy. That's the way it is until you're about 13, when she suddenly becomes the most ignorant, benighted, out-of-touch creature on the planet, and you can't get far enough away from her. Your primary form of interaction for the next 5 years or so will be a single word, Mom! And then somewhere between your 20s and 30s, if you're lucky, she'll become your best friend again. So that kind of summarizes it. For me, in my teens, I went through that period of pulling away and it's, Mom, she hasn't a clue, she doesn't know what you're doing. And the joy for my mom is seeing my daughter, who's now 14, coming into that stage and seeing her doing the exact same thing. And I'm kind of going, oh, gosh, here we go.
But she's coming to me for her makeup.
Yes, she is. She's now going, Grandma, can you help me? She's getting her eyebrows done on Sunday and she's like, Grandma, can you book me in? She's totally skips by me. I'm like, okay. So in my later years, in my teens, I remember a really poignant moment, and I think we all have maybe one little moment that stands out, that kind of is a moment where everything changes, subtly or, dramatically. For me, we were struggling around, what to do around kind of colleges and things like that. And there was a real fear for both my mom and my dad, about what I would do and how I was going about doing it. And a real fear that I didn't know what I was doing. That was my experience of it. Whether that was what was in their heads or not, I don't know. But certainly it was coming across like they were getting agitated and maybe angry towards me, because it felt for me that I didn't know what I was doing. But I knew inside of me that I did, and I had some sense of what I wanted to do. But I wasn't able to voice it. I wasn't very good at vocalizing and knowing, this is what I want to do, this is how I'm going to do it. I wasn't very good. I didn't really own my authentic voice at that period in time. I was struggling to find who I was in the world and own my own power as a woman in the world. I didn't have that language then, but just that's the feeling. It was like I was struggling against that. And I remember sitting down, because I wasn't being heard, and being, whatever I was saying wasn't being heard. I wrote a letter, and it really changed everything, right? Do you remember this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was. I wrote this letter, and in fact, my dad gave it to me in a pack of stuff that he was going to throw out, and he gave it to me, and I was rifling through old photographs, and this letter came up. I was like, oh my God, it brought me right back. It was a letter basically saying, I know that you want the best for me. I know that, but I need you to know that I know what it is I want to do. And I know that you need to trust me. You need to back off and trust me that I know what it is I need to do. How did that feel for you as a mom, to get that?
I still, it's like yesterday, it really is, and even though it's probably 40, I don't know how many years
God,
now.
let's not put years on it.
Okay. Well, certainly
long
30-something years
ago.
ago.
Black and white days.
But I remember that, because what you did with that letter actually was left it on my pillow.
That's right.
So when I actually went to bed that night, there was this letter, and I cried and I cried, and I was, and I can even feel it now. I was just so, I suppose there was a whole mix of feelings. One was that I felt so guilty because I felt, oh my God, Lisa was trying to tell me this and I wasn't hearing her. That was very painful to realise. And then the other thing was like the, delight in a way. Now that came later, not that night, but later. The realisation that you actually were able to communicate it. Even although you couldn't speak it, you actually communicated it. And I always remember that the next day sitting with you, and I know what was driving me before the letter was I just wanted so much for you. I just wanted so much for you. So it was just, to me, to get that letter was such a defining moment for me too, as a mother of a daughter, as it was for you as a daughter.
And it's lovely to hear that, because I know in that moment when I gave the letter, I didn't know what was going to happen. And I really appreciated that you heard that and you didn't rage against it or say, what the hell, we know what you're... I really appreciate that. So even for you listeners, as a mom, to listen, to really, as a child, we know what we need, we know what we want. It may not always be the best and we try to direct, but just to hear that is really, really powerful. You are very welcome back. We are here at Together FM, and I'm here with my own mother, Mary O'Connor, and I'm Lisa Burke, standing in for Karina. And we've been talking about the importance, the power of the mother-daughter relationships, and how we come into our own power by healing these relationships. And we're just having it's a conversation, guys. So if you're listening and any of this is resonating, please do send an email. You can send it in to Together FM. I'll give the email. Let me see if I have it here. I'll give it in to you later on. So it's info@togetherfm.com. So if you have any comments, you can send them in and get involved in this conversation. It's a really powerful conversation. And just before we were talking about just the defining moments of our relationships and being a daughter and what that means, and those defining moments that kind of can change a trajectory, and in particular being heard. As a daughter, how powerful that has been for me to be heard. Has that impacted you and your...
Yeah, I suppose one of the defining moments for me came through the loss of my mother, which was huge at the time because she was only 55 and there wasn't a lot of preparation for it. So it was, at that time, I when I look back at it now, I think I really... People call it breakdown, some people call it breakthrough, and I think it was for me both of those things. So I went through kind of a few years of real struggle, and it brought me into therapy, and it was a really difficult period. And I think who I was as a mother was really difficult at that time, for my children, for you as a daughter, because I would have been very unstable for a period of time, and it was really, really difficult. However, coming out of that and through that, led me to train, as a therapist and to go on and have many more defining moments, but that was the initial one. That was the initial piece for me. And I remember at some stage through that, period of when I was training, I'll never forget, actually, it stands out still as a huge moment for me of when we met, you and I, in the People's Park in Dunleary, and we sat, and I remember crying, and it was really difficult because we were struggling at that point, really struggling in our relationship, and I found it really, really painful, at that time. But to me, that was a defining moment, because our relationship did change onto another level again, you know. So there was, and that at that time, I think, you know, I think for me, I felt, for me, I felt that you were seeing me as a woman, as a person, you know, and not just as mother. So something shifted in that conversation that day, in that, you know, and it was very emotional, extremely emotional, you know. But I know something changed that day for both of us, I think. I mean, I don't know if...
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
absolutely it was. I remember that day very, very clearly, and it was for me a defining moment in our relationship, because we were really struggling as regards being just in relationship, just normal kind of relationship. I was feeling very angry, and you know, for me at the time when I was feeling very angry, I kind of just wanted to, you know, I didn't know where to direct it. So of course it gets directed to the people around you, your friends. And do you know what? I'm gonna talk about this because it's really important. I'm gonna come back to this,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna say this: the power of our words and the energy and intention behind our words are so powerful. I'm actually doing an experiment at the moment. I don't know if I told you about this. The experiment, I'm calling it the love experiment, and I've got 4 bottles. And on one, I have the word love. On one, I have the word gratitude. On one bottle, I have the word hate. And on one bottle, I'm just ignoring it. Let's not even talk about it. So on the first 2, the love and gratitude, like it's only been 4 days, and already I'm starting to see a shift. Like in the bottle of hate, it's starting to look a bit gloopy and a bit thicker and heavier. And the one of love is a lot clearer. Now that's only in 4 days. This is based on Dr. Emoto's, you know, that energy behind our words. And the reason why I'm saying this is because that energy that I was putting into the relationship, that kind of anger and, you know, all of that, that was actually poisoning the relationship. That energy, the intention behind it was just, I didn't know where to go. I was feeling really upset and angry. But when my mom sat me down that day in the park, in People's Park, and she said to me, she said, Lisa, be angry with me, be upset, be whatever way you feel, but just be in relationship with me. And that was huge. I was bowled over by that, and I can't tell you how it transformed it. Well, I can tell you, we're sitting here and we have come through an awful lot together, and we're still talking, aren't we?
Yes.
And I just remember that day really, really clearly, because it gave me permission to own my feelings, to own whatever, because I felt if I was sitting with her and she was telling me whatever, and I was just underneath it going, I hate you, you know, you've done this, you've done that, and the list of all the things that she had done to me, because that's where my mind was at the time. And when I stayed in that place, no matter what she was telling me, I was just coming from the place of, well, look at you, you know, I'm just sad, hurt, in pain, and I just want to hurt you. And when she said that, it kind of lifted it for me. It kind of really lifted that burden of having to stay angry with you, and allowed me the passageway to kind of go, well, I am really angry. I am really upset that this is happening. And so I have to say thank you, honestly, you know, thank you for allowing that to happen. Because that really transformed our relationship, is the ability to be honest with each other and to say, okay, this is hurt, this is really painful to do this, but I am hurting and I am angry, or whatever it is. Just to say to anybody who's listening that, you know, as a mother, to give permission to your kids to feel whatever it is they're feeling. In fact, if you don't mind, I had a moment with my own son, because this comes through whether you're a daughter or a son, or just to give permission, because he was struggling with something. I won't go into all the detail, but just to say, like, he was struggling with something, and I said it to him, like, it's okay to feel mad, you know, because he was trying to not be mad. He's a, you know, very sensitive and kind, and he, you know, struggling with that. but to just say it's okay to be mad, be angry, be whatever you're feeling. It doesn't have to stay that way, but when you let it go, it can transform. So so thank you for that opportunity. Thank you for doing that, because it really helped to heal
It's
a lot.
funny when you talk about that generational stuff. I you know, kind of where, you know, I have to say I didn't have that experience with my mother of, you know, reparation in a way, really, you know, and well, I was able to do it in my therapy, you know, kind of after she was gone. But I suppose that kind of would always drive me on to you know, to do this while I'm alive, you know, not to leave that, you know, to leave a legacy of hurt. But I was, I don't know, when we were talking about doing this, I was thinking of, you know, how we can do things generationally without awareness. And when we were talking about doing this, I thought of Nancy Friday's book, My Mother, Myself, you know. And she tells this story, and it just made me laugh, but yeah, the truth of it. She was preparing, American, she was preparing Thanksgiving dinner one day. And she got the turkey and she got the basting tray, you know, the big tray, and she cut the legs off the turkey. And as she was doing it, she thought, why do I always cut the legs off the turkey? Do you know? Why do I do that? Because it could fit into the tin, so why? So she rang her mother, and because she realised I'm doing, my mother always did this. So she rang her mother and she asked her mum, why do you always cut the legs off the turkey before you cook it? And the mother said, I don't know. I said, my mum always did it. So Nancy was lucky enough that her grandmother was still there, still alive. So she rang her grandmother and said, Granny, why did you always cut the legs off the turkey? And her grandmother said, because the tin was too small. And it was so amazing to Nancy that 3 generations, you know, and possibly her daughter watching her, you know, the generations do things without thinking, without questioning, just because. And the power of actually stopping and reflecting, and I think that's what we are really encouraging people to do here today, to our listeners, you know, stop and go, what am I doing today that I'm doing because my mother did it, or her mother's mother did it, or, you know, what, you know, is there something that I want to let go of? Is there something I want to change? You know, because I think that's what, you know, when you take on your own personal journey and you're willing to look at these relationships, especially this one, because this is core. This is a core, you can't go more core than mother to child, so mother to daughter in this case. So if you open that up, you're also opening up choice, freedom, you know, like the freedom to choose who you are, rather than, well, you know, I'm doing it because mum did it, you know. So now there's good stuff I think we can make choices about, you know, as we are talking about today. But I think there's also, you know, that other side, you know, the shadow side that we need to also look at and take ownership of. And I think if we can do both, then, you know, we'll experience that freedom, that choice, you know, to choose who we want to be and to step in, as you say, to your own personal power. I mean, it's been such a delight for me, you know, watching you, Lisa, you know, over the past few years. I mean, you've no idea the joy of that, the sheer joy of it, and gratitude I have, you know, because we would have journeyed in 2 very different ways, you know, to where we are today. And when I go back again to what I said in the intro piece around that experience of standing with you as this beautiful woman, you know, who is standing in her power today, and how delightful that is for me. Can't, you know,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to hear that.
Yeah.
And I know you've had your own struggles with that, but I see you doing that as well. And it's like, it's been beautiful for me to walk with you on this, you know, through this, because I know it was a struggle at some stage. I saw you giving up and kind of going, you know, I that's whatever, just waiting for God kind of thing. And that, and it's awful to see that, you know, as a daughter, to see you, my mom, who's so beautiful and powerful and has such, you know, amazing potential and does so much healing work with others, to see you kind of in that space of giving up. So for me to watch you over the last few years too, to start owning that and to kind of go, wow, you've taken some brave, massive, big, brave steps. You've come to the edge. Is that Apollinaire poem?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to tell it?
Apollinaire says, come to the edge. Oh, no, no, no. I'm afraid. Ah, come to the edge. No, no, no. I might fall. Ah, come to the edge. So I came, and he pushed me, and I flew.
That's it. We all have wings, but sometimes we don't use them, right? Sometimes we don't take that massive big step, and it goes back to what you said about choice. It's always, you know, we were at a power summit there last week and together, and it was again about owning your power as a woman, and every single speaker at that conference, every single one of them without fail mentioned choice. Every single one of them, because I was taking notes as we went through, and every single one of them, it was all said, it's a choice. So you can see, you know, the desperation in it, or you can see the opportunity for growth in every single opportunity that we face, or difficulty that we face. You know,
and I suppose, like, you know, isn't that the truth of it? You know, the pitfalls of doing this work is that, yes, you know, you're opening up maybe past hurts and, you know, pains and whatever, you know. So I think it might be good to talk about that a little bit before.
Welcome back to Together FM. We're here today. I'm Lisa Burke, and I'm here with my very special mom, Mary O'Connor, and we are talking all about relationships between mother and daughter and healing those relationships, that primary relationship. So we've been talking about, I suppose, our own personal stories and stuff that we've gone through, and we were talking a little bit about the ancestral you know, the line of ancestral, and how powerful that is when we begin to heal what's in us. And one of the things that comes to mind when we talk about the ancestral, one of the things that you've gifted through the generations that has come through about, I don't know, 4 or 5 generations at this stage, is fear. So we pick up fears and self-beliefs and all this sort of stuff. So one of the things that has been passed down through our generations through the female line is bees. Yes, of the busy bees. So I learned very early on that bees were very, very dangerous. I've many occasions where my mother really, she went screaming out of rooms, swatting, and I kind of learned very early on, woo, they must be really dangerous. And one particular instant, will I tell the one of Clara Lara? Do you want to cringe?
Tell them.
I'll tell you, go on. So in Clara Lara, we were years and years ago, it's still there today actually, Clara Lara. I'm surprised they didn't close after that. So my mom, we were sitting and we were having a picnic. It was picnic time. We had, Clara Lara was all the water and there was all...
Maybe, but will I tell it? Because when you're talking about the picnic, I think I'd bring you over to, you know, in Clara Lara at the time, there was one of those big, you know, because it was full of kind of sporty stuff as well. So there was a rope. And you know, at one side of the, like a little moat in the middle, so the children would all line up to get on the rope and they'd swing over on the rope to the other side. So there was a large group and you had to queue to use it. And I'm on the other side of that, you know, their daddy's with them queuing for the rope and I'm over on the other side. And I'm standing there and it's a scorching day. And I have on this little, what I call a drindle dress. So it's elasticated just at the top with no straps, no bra, nothing, just this little drindle dress. And I'm looking across at this crowd and I'm waiting for, the children to have their turn. And with that, I looked down, and sitting on my dress is the most ginormous bee. So I just instinctively, as I looked down, saw it all happened in a split second, I screamed. And as I screamed, I pulled down the dress and totally exposed myself to all these children and adults on the other side of this little moat. So that was one of the experiences they had to recover from. And as I did. So back to you. Yeah. And it turned out, when I was exploring this, that my mother would also have had some experiences with bees, and not very pleasant ones, and would have had a fear of them. So I would have picked that up. Then I heard the story that in my grandmother, so this is going back another generation, that when I was a baby, I was there about 3 months, 6 months old, and she lived in Roscommon. And apparently I didn't cry as a baby, I screamed. So they used to put me out under the hedge. And when I looked at that hedge years later, it's one of those that attracts all the bees in the county. So I kind of wonder, was there a bit of that around as well, that there was something about bees as a baby even, But then, of course, there's you, and then there's your daughter.
My daughter, yes,
Lauren.
My beautiful Lauren, who is, really, really bad. Now, I have had the absolute grace of letting go of this fear. I had many times, I don't know if any of our listeners have ever experienced walking in to a beehive and being completely surrounded by bees and being stung. I've managed to do that 3 times in my life. 3 times I've walked in and been completely surrounded by bees. I've had multiple stings and I've had multiple. So I did a yoga festival actually, and it was during a white tantric. And the actual, we're talking about ancestral and the lineage. And this came up for me. I remember before I went in, I saw this hive of bees and I was like, oh my God, you're kidding me. Because I was a little bit, I learned very well from my mom how to flap my wings, how to scream, how to run really fast. I learned all of that really, really well. Thank you.
You're welcome. I have to tell you, I've never been stung.
Oh my God, well, you're better than me. I've had many stings.
But anyway.
So I was going in, we did this. So I was very aware it was around bees, and it was all around subconscious fears. And that was obviously one of the biggest ones. And I remember it was 3 days of this white tantric doing meditations and clearing kind of those subconscious beliefs. And I remember at the end of the 3 days, I went through a whole process, but I remember seeing our lineage. So seeing my mom and my mom's mom, and this line of women all the way back to kind of that original source, and feeling that healing happening. Now, unfortunately, when I come home, I don't think it quite moved through you, didn't transfer to you. But certainly for me, I remember at the end of the 3 days, I sat down and a bee came and landed on my big toe, and I thought, I didn't move. I actually didn't move. Like, normally a bee couldn't get anywhere near me. I was too fast. So that was incredible for a bee to actually land on me. And since then, I am completely over it. Now, I'm completely over the phobia. Unfortunately, I've already passed this on to my daughter. So my daughter has, learned the flapping and the running has really worked for her. So she's sticking with it. She doesn't believe me that I could just get over it. But it is, again, we're going back to kind of the choices we make and the choices around how we can look at the way we are in relationships and look at the stuff that we're carrying, the stuff that doesn't serve us, the stuff that we're, the fears, the old self-beliefs. We grow up between the ages of 0 and 7. We've developed all those kind of self-beliefs. You're not enough. You're not, you're whether you feel loved or not loved, whether the world is a safe place or it's not a safe place. We've learned all those self-beliefs. And, as we get into our adult years, it's so important to know that we have a choice to either hold on to them, because they're the stories that we tell ourselves, right? They're the stories that we believe. We truly believe them because we've grown up with these. They're our beliefs, and we want to hold on to them so tight. So the beauty in the work that, I've seen the power of the work you do, and through the power of the work that I'm doing, is letting go of those old self-beliefs and coming into that place of authentic power, of power within yourself.
Yeah. I think, I always have this image of our core beliefs, because they're all formed in us at the very early years. And I always think of it's like wearing a pair of glasses, So we look at the world through those core beliefs, like as if we're looking through this lens, And when we take that, pair of glasses off, then we have an opportunity to look at the world through a different lens and what it would be like to look through a different lens. So rather than, I have to do this because this is what was done before me, or I was, hurt as a child and my needs weren't met, so that's my fate forever. No. And I think part of this journey of healing, I believe, is learning about, being able to get in touch with your own mothering self, because I think that's true for all of us, that is getting in touch with that mothering self, being able to begin to have people in our lives that love and respect and care for us, and it may not be our mothers, as in biological mother, but it may be the people you draw around you to if you're in touch with your own mothering self, being able to nurture and to intuit what you need and be able to begin to ask for what you need and all of that. It sounds like a lot of work, but it's actually one little bit at a time, and being around people who are supporting you, who wants the best for you, I think all of that is so important in this work, in this journey of healing the past. Now, I always say, look at the pitfalls and then look at the benefits. The pitfalls of not doing it or of doing it is of opening old hurts, looking at, maybe how your needs weren't met or how you were abandoned, or whatever it is, maybe being rejected. So that's one of the you can call it a pitfall, or one of the challenges of doing this work is beginning to look at your story and being able to take off the glasses, so you're looking at that in a very clear way. But of course then there's the benefits. So maybe Lisa, if you want to talk about the benefits.
Well, certainly one of the biggest benefits I've seen, and we've talked about it today, is that owning your own power, like when you step into owning who you are, and how that reverberates. Like, I feel I model how to be in the world for my daughter, for the power that is in her, and the huge potential and the power that she is already, but that I see so much potential for her, and indeed my sons. So it's not, as I say, it's not just purely my daughter, but that I see that power. But I know that if I keep myself limited, that's what I'm passing on. And I'm really, Cathal Kilbran's, his poem where he talks about that. I'm going to read actually this. It's just so personifies what we're talking about, is that, what we own in ourselves, that power that we own in ourselves, that we give that to our children. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, not tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So for me, the benefit of doing this work, as painful sometimes as it can be, that moment of sitting in the bench in People's Park, that was painful, but it was transformative.
Yes,
something
absolutely.
so simple of just being present. So if anybody who's listening today wants to know, well, how do I start? That's great. That's wonderful. Let's have this beautiful relationship. It just starts by being present, being 100% honest, with how you're feeling, but allowing the other person in as well, allowing a space that there's a conversation. We're having a conversation today, and that's what I really just hope, that if you take nothing else from this day, that you allow yourself to open yourself to the conversation, to allow yourself to show yourself to be vulnerable. I know Brené Brown talks about courage, and one of the key components of courage is vulnerability. Allowing yourself to show your vulnerability and saying, I'm not perfect, I don't have it all together, I don't know everything, but I'm willing to see you as you are. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what would you see then for you? Like, what would that mean for you, the benefit of doing this work?
I suppose because, you mentioned it, at the beginning in the introduction, like if I talk of myself as not only as a mother and as a daughter, but talk about myself as a therapist for a moment, because I think kind of that journey of, walking with so many people who are, hurt and pain and in trauma, is struggling, with anxiety, depression, with all sorts of issues in their life, and very often there's a people can struggle with finding a way out of that, a way through it, and really when I look at, I've said this so many times to clients that I'm sure they kind of go, oh, here she goes again, because I'm a bit like a broken record with this piece. I would say to you that the most important moment when you start saying, God, I'm doing the best I can, that gentleness of tone, the compassion with the self is so important. And if you're able to start that journey with yourself in that way, that I would call that mothering, is that compassionate, gentle tone with yourself. And then kind of being able to reach out, because I think sometimes you need support, sometimes you need guidance, sometimes you need just a way for, some skills to go forward. It's when Lisa talks about being vulnerable and, being honest and all of that, it might be really difficult, to do that in the relationship at the moment, and you might need support with that. So we look at that, in terms of support, kind of going forward, kind of in terms of workshops and,
Well, that's what I'd like to offer. If there is anyone that's listening that says, you know what, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to, start being more honest and being more truthful and looking for that. But getting support is really a huge part of this work as well. We stand in, if we can stand together as a group of women, we can stand in our own power, and we lean on each other and we can be honest and open with each other. Mm-hmm. So we're actually offering a workshop that is specifically focused on this relationship between mother-daughter. And again, it reflects who you are. It's your journey within yourself. It's healing the self to come into that place of power within yourself. We go back to that, what we said at the very beginning, women grow up and our energy is largely turned toward men, but the original love relationship is with mother. So if we as daughters don't acknowledge that, we're closing ourselves off from a great source of power and fulfillment and understanding of ourselves. So if you are looking to do this work, if you want to jump in, myself and my mum are going to be doing this workshop, the mother-daughter relationships. You can get in contact with me, lisa@yogasoulacademy.com. That's lisa@yogasoulacademy.com. Or just look me up, Lisa Burke. I have a yoga centre, Dana Yoga Centre. You can get my number and just send me an email, let me know.
And maybe just to kind of say, because some people, it might put people off if they don't know this piece, that, if they do decide they want to do the workshop, you don't have to come hand in hand with your daughter or your mother.
No.
You just have to be one.
Yeah.
Be a daughter, and we're all daughters.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah.
We are.
So it's important to say that. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying. So just to say thank you so much for inviting me here today. Karina, thank you for having us here today to Together FM. We've really enjoyed our time. I really enjoyed this. It's been really, really special to do this. I've never done this before, and thank you. It's been really special to do this and to share this, because I know for anybody out there who, we all are daughters, to have that relationship, to heal the relationship has been so powerful. So just to share that our own little stories and our own little journey that we've had together, it's been really powerful. So really thank you so much to all the listeners. This is Together FM, and you can contact if you want to follow up, you can contact info@togetherfm.com, or the number is 699-3840. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day, and we'll finish with a great song. Thank you very much.